Tonight's video may be just as much, or maybe even more, what not to do than it is what to do. But there are some really interesting results, and you can watch my experiments and decide what you would like to try and not try. Hello friend, it is Wednesday and I am in the studio and I've decided it would be fun to do some image transfer tonight. There were several other things I considered doing and started doing even, but it has not been an easy day in the studio. So I'm hoping that returning to some image transfer will just be fun and you can enjoy and learn from what I've learned. So I have two images. I'm starting with this one, which is a laser print. I have had no success with laser prints yet. So I'm hoping that despite how today has been going, this goes better. I am starting with Prussian blue hue, Liquitex Basics, which is my favorite, and I've already gotten off on the wrong foot because I already know that is too much paint. I didn't see how fast it was coming out, so we can, for now, use the other plate to get rid of some of the excess. Spread it out well. The key to an image transfer is a very thin layer of paint. Make sure the entire image touches the plate well, but also have a light touch. So I neglected to mention that another important aspect of doing image transfer successfully is a high contrast image. And there may have been too much shadow on his face for this to be really effective. But I can also see here where I've lost things. It would appear that the image actually may have gotten a little scuffed up on the surface, which would not yield a good pull. But let's see. Turn it over to get a better idea. Not too sure about that one, but we'll let it dry and hope that maybe this is still wet enough to do something with. I'm not thinking so. So what I will do, actually, there should be enough that I can do some texture in this. Let's see what is closest at hand under the desk, which would be one of the hot glue gel plates I made. Hot glue texture plates, oh my word. Just lay down some lines. And typically I would use different spots on the plate because I don't like to have everything look the same. We'll see how it goes. That's interesting. But the one problem I have now is everything in front of me needs to dry. So I can either pause the video or I can go ahead and put another layer on this because although it's not dry enough to work cleanly, I think adding some color, other color, could be very interesting. And you know what? I reached for metallic and then realized that's a bad idea because the metallics, as the gloss medium, I've noticed sometimes, I've talked about how when the paint you have is thin on the brayer, how you start pulling paint back off, which can be very useful. But I've noticed that with the metallics and with the gloss medium, I'm more often likely to pull off some of my paint already on the plate when I use them. And where's the deep violet? Oh. And I usually use a narrower brayer for this to start spreading out my globby bits of paint. So if you watched last week's video, this is a similar color palette. Well, it is the same color palette, just put down a little differently. I'm just going to pull this with some heavy cardstock. But yes, this does have to dry before we can make our pull. I wonder if our brooding friend is dry enough. I think so. So it's important to not go too dark or too thick on the next layer. But again, if it's a little too thin, you'll start pulling paint back up. And I have used copper and bronze in my magazine image transfers in the past to give a little glow. So maybe I will try some silver. I was thinking starting in the light area, but I think I'll go in the darker area. And I think I'll use this brayer that still has some of my magenta and yellow. That's interesting. But again, sometimes with the small brayer, you can do a little better with softening out those edges. Also, probably not letting it sit. You know, I'm actually really liking this, but I don't quite, oh, hey, I found the deep violet I was looking for. And I'm afraid it'll be too dark up here, though. So let's throw in another bit of silver. And yeah, this might be a little dark for the color of the magazine, or the color of the, I'm sorry, that keeps rattling. I see one of the feet has slid off. Yeah, the mic is probably picking it all right up. Cardstock. I may have let this get a little dry. I may have gone a little too thin, is the problem. So I will be linking to these glass cutting boards that I use to hold my plates. Though, as you could see, the adhesive on the feet's not ideal. Alright, so the rule of thumb I always bring back up is if your paper still feels cool, it is still wet. I'm afraid this one isn't cool enough to start, but we'll see. Ooh, I may have found a new trick. Go even thinner. But yes, we've lost our friend here. Oh, there's an eye. So this was not a very successful image transfer. But I do like the moody colors and the sheen from the silver. But it's not quite what we were going for. And this is still drying, so I'll get out my other image. And I was thinking of doing something a little different with this, as in actually making the transfer in a multicolored background. I do have to say I like the Prussian blue. Maybe to be on the safe side, I will base it though more with my typical Payne's gray, which I love, because I'm not sure. The texture of the Prussian blue does seem to be a little different than I'm used to with the image transfers. It was got more of that than I intended to just then. It was a new color I was trying last week, and I do have to admit I really like, have I said have to admit repeatedly? Makes me sound, I don't know. Anyway, moving on. My rambling seems to be showing. And now I can't remember what I was saying. Regardless. Oh, I remember. I do rather like the tone of the Prussian blue over my typical phthalo blue. And interestingly enough, when I first invested in tube acrylics to be making art, I did intend to get Prussian blue, but there was none available the day I ordered, so I got phthalo blue, which was supposed to be similar. I may have pressed down a little hard on that, but oops, I think that worked pretty well. I did blend my colors in the background together more than I had intended. Ooh, look at how well that plant came out. I don't know if you can see that. There you can. That looks so cool. How magazine image transfers work is that the areas that have a lot of ink in them, like the dark colored water from the pool, don't pull up as much paint, whereas the lighter areas that don't have as much pigment pull up more pigment. Alright, let's see. Test a corner. That's fun. I wish I'd gotten more yellow, but I did get some orange and some purpling going on there. I also like how the texture plate actually created more depth. When I went over it, it actually looks like there are layers. You can see how it's sort of shadowy behind there. So it's definitely interesting. And, well, while that one continues to dry, I think I will continue this theme of putting down a thin textured layer of Prussian blue. This has a little bit of the Quinacridone magenta and deep violet on the brayer. I mean, noticeably a little bit. And let's see what comes out of the texture stash. Well, that's kind of boring. I mean, well, yeah, I find this one kind of boring, but go ahead, make a print. How did I manage to push that part down so much harder? Yeah, I'm not liking that. Should have been more gentle. Well, let's see. That's kind of interesting. Alright, let's move on. Nope, circles are always fun. There happen to be more in this than I realized at first. Let's see what the smaller one is. This one can be used 2 different ways. But yeah, this is not I'm not finding this exciting. And because it's going to be a single pull, and it's the bottom layer on the plate, this is the top layer. So everything else in this print is going to be seen through this layer. So let's try to make this more interesting. Of course, Melinda, you're going to have to pick all these out now. Maybe jumping the shark at this point. But hey. I'll end up with something interesting. I guess. I was avoiding grabbing this one because I've used it so much frequently. And although it's not bubble wrap, it ends up looking like bubble wrap, which there's nothing wrong with bubble wrap, but I prefer something a little less, I don't know, a little more organic, I guess. See what we can do with this little buddy. Yeah, that's too dry over there. So, yeah, not ideal. And I seem to have gotten some of my blue on my image transfer. That's unfortunate. Well, it'll add some interest. Or something. I wonder if there's enough paint on any of these to make spots. Oh. This is part of a plant. I don't even know. So I think with that blue there, I may try to very cautiously echo it. Of course, let's just put it down very blatant circles. Let's try to deal with that before they well, that's fun. Actually, in last week's video, the texture that I pulled with the Quinacridone magenta and the cadmium yellow medium hue was actually supposed to look a little bit more like that, but I squirted more out than I had in the previous piece that I was going to demonstrate how I did it. Alright, going to be brave. Put down some silver. And because the blue wasn't dry, I'm picking up blue. So the silver will be above whatever I put down, except for the blue. Part of me at this point just wants to pull this with a layer of gloss medium, but I still kind of want more of a yellow in there. And I do have to say that, unfortunately, because I didn't let the blue dry as much, I've created, Melinda, clean off your brayer, or well, roll off your brayer, or just grab the other one. Alright, so you can see how that's pulling off some of the blue. Hopefully not too much of the image transfer itself. So here's one of the benefits of using the glass. You can flip it over and get a more of an idea of how things are going. So my goal today was, yes, to use thinner layers, but I have taken that a little too far, perhaps. I think instead of my regular gloss medium, I was going to use matte medium. This one is dried shut. Here's a different one. That was my Liquitex. This is my golden. Not dried shut, just kind of oddly gooey. So here is an example of super thin paint layer, which it may have been fun to add more to, but I'm running out of time, lovely friends. Well, if you're feeling like it is unoriginal, I'm going to go back to the cadmium yellow medium hue and the Quinacridone magenta, because I also like the orange it creates and the impression of purple. This has the matte medium in it. And yeah, the smaller brayer may have been, but this is working okay. As long as I can do enough without getting too much of it too blended together for this fun, super textured look. Alright, I'm going to grab 2 sheets because, and this layer of paint is a little thicker than I've been working with tonight, which is okay. But the video's a little bit all over, well, I don't know, all over the place. It's a little extreme, but that down. Unfortunately, a thicker layer of paint will take longer to dry. I will also add another sheet and roll off my brayer for a fun look. Interesting. And I'm not sure what's on my brayer. Or if it was something that was on the gel plate and left a mark in the paint as opposed to, oh, is that? I seem to have stopped finishing sentences. Oh, there's a bubbled up area there. Let's smooth that down. So the image transfer. Yeah, that's messy. Interesting how the plant came out. The blue did get away from me. It does have an interesting grungy look, but as far as being a nice, clean image transfer, it's not that. But it is interesting. Feels like it may still be damp in some places, but as I said, I am out of time. And this corner is coming up okay, so, oops, yep, I've run into where it's still too wet. So, in the interest of not destroying this fun experiment, I'll come back later. Oh, you know what? I remember something else I forgot I meant to share with you is last week's paintbrush. How impressive is that? It is definitely not at all blue, and I can paint with it again. These I use more for applying satin glazing liquid in my translucent layer collages. I did eat off some of the paint here too. One thing to remember, another tip, when you wash a brush in any way and it's wet, don't put it upright to dry because you don't want the water pooling down in here. You'll more quickly ruin your brush. This was another brush I put in the Murphy oil soap after I stopped the video. And it also has been returned to usefulness. So if you missed last week's video and you want to see more with this color scheme, but I'd say with even more visual interest than this one, be sure to catch last week's video where I also demonstrated using Murphy oil soap to save paintbrushes you have forgotten to rinse. It's amazing how it can remove dried on acrylic paint from paintbrushes and fabric. Yeah, this still isn't ready. If all else fails, I will show you the pole next week. And if you're interested in those translucent layers, I have a workshop in the works, and there will be a link below where you can sign up to be notified when it opens for registration. All right, here we go. Another totally unique gel print. I hope you are feeling inspired to be making your own art. If so, give me a thumbs up. Also, if you have learned something from my experiments with varying levels of success, don't forget to subscribe to not miss any of my Studio Wednesday videos or my Better with Art Sunday creative self-care small art prompts. I'll keep making art and encouraging others to do so.